What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hitting the Apex on Five Reasons Sports. I'm joined by Vish and my good friend Manny. Well, Vish, you're my good friend too.
I was
But
about to say, what happened
yeah,
here, man? Damn.
It's only been 1 week of racing, and you're
Vish and
not
my
even
good friend Manny Chang.
Jesus
what's
Christ.
what's going on, fellas? How you guys doing?
Doing well, doing well.
We got a really exciting show today. I'm super excited to bring on our special guest in about 4 minutes now. He's really obviously he's really plugged into Formula One and to the greatest team ever, Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari. So
I
but I
already
won't.
see him down here already doing this. I'm like,
Right.
oh man, here we
Jeez.
go.
I can't even say anything after what McLaren did this weekend. God.
But no,
FaceTime, baby, FaceTime.
seriously, we're really excited to have him on the show. It's Vincenzo Landino, our Italian friend here, will be joining us in just a short moment to talk everything. I mean, we've got a full show today. We've got some Bahrain recap. We got the Bahrain Grand Prix recap. We've got this looking ahead to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as well. Which is only in its second year of operation, basically. So, really interesting circuit. We'll definitely talk a little bit about that. Some other news as well is the power units, right? There's a lot of stuff that Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari, which hopefully are the top three teams. I'm sorry, Vish. Hopefully are the top three teams in the circuit this year. Talking about their power units, so we'll get a little bit into that. But I think the most interesting news of the whole day is this talk of the F1 boss Stefano Domenicali, talking about the possible expansion to 30 races. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Where are these new races going to be? So it's pretty interesting stuff because I think that we're going to have some split opinions on this as well. So you'll see it right there. Stefano Domenicali, the F1 boss, on potential new races and teams in Martin Brundle exclusive. So yeah, so we'll definitely talk a little bit about that as well. But I mean, how excited are you guys about? We'll talk about Bahrain with Vincenzo, but are you guys excited about Saudi Arabia? It's kind of relatively new, right? It's only the second year that they put this race together.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the cars compare because usually you have a bigger gap between
Right.
when
It's a
they when they
street
do it.
circuit too, right? It's actual
It's a
street.
street circuit,
Yeah.
but when we do these big car redesigns, usually it's like if the race was at the end of the year or previous year, and this was the next to last race last year, it's usually at the end of the calendar again. So there's a lot of time to develop the new car, and you can't really one-to-one compare. There's only been one race on the new car, so it's still relatively in its infancy. So I'm really excited to see what's the pace difference between what they were doing with, I guess, the end stage of the last generation of cars versus the beginning of the new generation of cars. So I like that's at the front of the calendar. You get a good comparison there.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm just more excited to see how Red Bull responds. In retrospect of seeing that, the whole thing like I guess for me is like a classic meltdown. And then you want to see if I do understand that the issues with Mercedes are not going to be fixed right away, right? But you want to see if maybe on a circuit track, if maybe this. I hate the P word. What the hell's that P word again? Papar? What is it?
I was like, wait a
Porpoising,
second.
dude.
I was like, wait a
Porpoising.
second. Where are we going with this?
There's a lot
Porpoising,
of
man. Porpoising.
Chris Whittingham is not
Porpoising.
here.
There
It's
you
fine.
go.
Porpoise is
Whether the porpoising then affects them still or not. So, and then of course, like I still expect. Well, I'm trying to see if the Haas vehicle is for real. I'm trying to see still if that's after one race, that's all been the talk when it comes out to the outside of the top three teams or so. But I think if you're a racing fan and if you're an American racing fan, you want to see a little bit more before you say, "Oh wow, this is going to be the surprise team of the whole season." So
I think that's going to be an interesting question that maybe we should ask Vincenzo. Also, by the way, our special guest, if you guys didn't already see on Twitter, and we didn't talk about, is maybe I even mentioned it. I don't even know anymore. I've had so many things going on today. Vincenzo Landino is going to be joining us in about a minute. Hopefully, he hops into the hops
Oh,
in backstage soon.
he's
he's here.
backstage.
Oh, so
He's
then
been
What are we waiting for? Like,
He's been listening to us gas
our
back.
man.
Yeah, he needs a proper introduction, man.
Proper introduction, bro. Italy just won the Euros
Communication.
last year. We got to give him a proper intro.
Unbelievable. All right, so let's
All right,
bring
there
him
we
joining
go.
us. There he is. Oh, I love the colors too. He came prepared today, baby. He came prepared.
I prepared for you. I don't say yes to something and then not show up properly.
We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
you
man.
so much, Vincenzo Landino, joining us on the show now on Hitting the Apex. Thank you so much, Vincenzo, for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Who mentioned the Euros last year?
Manny.
I was actually in Italy, and I celebrated with cool story. I was in Italy. I watched the final in a little piazza in southern Italy. We were so excited that, after we won, that we went the next day up to Rome and actually paraded around with the bus, with the players who had the trophy. And they were, if you guys check out my Instagram or my Twitter, it's back there somewhere. But yeah, we were parading around with the players and tens of thousands of other Italians. It was fantastic.
Awesome. That is pretty cool.
It was a good time.
Who's your club? I guess we got to get into it, right? Who's your club team, right?
Roma.
Roma. Okay.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho, huh?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I expected him to do a little bit more but the team is not exactly there this year. Missing a few pieces. I love Abraham, love Pellegrini. I think Zaniolo, when he's on, he plays really well, but he's kind of got to get his head right. He's still young. And of course, Juventus seems to just always scoop up all these guys when it matters the most. And it always feels like your team is not able to compete because it's like, we're almost there. And then Juventus, Inter, and Milan will always just go and grab other guys. And you're like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to be able to compete. So.
Well, I think, listen, truthfully, we should probably end there because our team didn't do too well this past weekend, so we're gonna kind of leave it there.
We are all Real Madrid fans.
Let's not talk about the past.
Yeah. Well, we have to talk about before we get into the past.
Let's talk about Sunday,
bro.
Let's talk about Sunday morning versus what happened in the afternoon.
Well, I mean, we want to talk about the past as in last Sunday.
Sunday. Fine with me.
Want to do real quick before we get into that. Talk to us a little bit about what you do, and how you came about, and your love for F1 and obviously for Ferrari as well.
Sure. Grew up watching Formula One. I had an uncle who was really, really into motorsport. Used to take us to the track all the time. We used to go, karting, and we'd watch Formula One. At the time, I didn't really realize how exciting or how much I loved it. But Ferrari's the team. When you're Italian, it's kind of in your blood. You feel like, I don't know if I've met an Italian who's like, oh, I'm not a Ferrari fan, right? That doesn't compute in my brain, which is okay if there are ones out there. I've just never met one. And I mean, just been watching the sport, enjoying the sport. At some point in kind of the middle of my life, I didn't pay as much attention to it, only because there wasn't enough people around my direct vicinity that talked about it. So it was one of those lost, there's NFL, there's plenty of NFL right here in the States. There's plenty of European soccer fans or European football fans in the States that you can talk to. But Formula One was one of those things where it was like, if you didn't like NASCAR, there was no other motorsport at a certain time in my life. So I feel like I dropped off a little bit, but with social media, it's so much easier now. And I'm kind of getting to a point, I promise. But with social media, it's so much easier for fans to show off their fandom, to connect with other fans, because it doesn't really matter where you are. So it's easy to find that common connection. And that's what I love the most about, where Formula One is at this current place and time. And so what I've taken upon myself to try to do is bring the business side of Formula One, as well as the culture and kind of lifestyle of Formula One, and bring a little bit more of that out into the world. There's plenty of commentators like yourselves. There's plenty of, pundits. There's plenty of podcasts and creators that are out there talking about the on track, the drivers. Now, I still do the same thing, but I've kind of focused on more of the business aspect of it as a business owner myself, as someone whose clients consist of a lot of sponsors that are in F1. A lot of American tech companies are my clients. It was kind of like this easy way for me to get in and start talking about something different. And So yeah, so I'm creating a little bit of content on that side. I've got a newsletter that's kind of focused on the business side of it. I'm fascinated by the numbers, the viewership numbers, social media numbers, the impact that social media has, the impact that media in general, like Drive to Survive. It'd be foolish for us not to talk about it or to pretend it doesn't exist, like some people want to act as if it's not a driver of success. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. My full time, like my day to day, I have a video production studio that I own, and
cool.
and we handle we deal with a lot of clients. But I'm slowly getting myself deeper into Formula One and hoping to get fully into it at some point where I can actually make that a thing. But again, it's more of a side hustle for me.
Welcome to our world.
Exactly. I mean, you guys get it, right?
Yeah, we definitely do. But speaking of viewership, right? You brought up a great point. Most viewers, the most viewers we've ever had for a race.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess it was in the United States, right? In the U.S.
In the U.S.
Was this past Sunday, and
since 1995, yeah,
pretty freaking remarkable. A real good race. Obviously, we saw some excitement from the get-go. So I kind of wanted to kind of jump into that. Aside from the fact that we took P1 and P2, but that's neither here nor there right now. For
we don't even have to talk about that anymore. That's just there, right? It's like
my guys up there.
Everyone knows.
Talk to me a little bit of how you felt about the race, just in general. What your take was on just the whole experience of the Bahrain Grand Prix.
I thought it was a great race. I mean, overall, from even not as just a Ferrari fan, as a fan of sport, it was nice to see some different teams in the running. There was a lot of different storylines. If we're talking about this from kind of like a media perspective, I mean, it really sucked to see McLaren as bad as they were. Sorry to pour salt in the wound. It actually does suck.
Vish.
I do apologize, but it does. It actually does suck to see that, right? It was nice to see Haas, and here's the thing, whether you like Haas or you don't like Haas or whatever that might be, it's just nice to see those that are bottom feeders actually competing, because it just means that there's more of a shot to kind of shake up the top guys, right? At the end of the year, at the end of the season, we know it's going to be between a handful of folks because of development, because there's teams that have more capability to, or maybe better engineers to upgrade. It's nice to see the first race of the season have a lot of parity across the board. I enjoyed that aspect of it. Really shocked to see the Red Bull issues. I had mentioned that in a video I made earlier this week. I was kind of like taken aback because we know it's still Honda power units. Even though everyone's like, oh no, it's Red Bull power units. No, it's not. They're Hondas. They're just rebadged. They've got all Honda engineers in the factory. They've got some from, Mercedes engineers in there. Like, we know that Red Bull's been working at this. So it was really shocking to me to see those types of issues, especially at the very end of the race. Now, I know it sounds like it's one of those problems that's a fluke, but I guess I wasn't expecting a fluke issue from a Red Bull team, right? Like, you'd expect that from someone else, from some other like lower end team. The Mercedes power units across the board, other than the fluke 3-4 Mercedes finish, the Mercedes customer teams were struggling all day. And I think we're going to see more of that throughout the year. Where Mercedes has the leg up on their customer teams is that they just have a much better team, a massive team that can work on this all year. We've already seen, Allison and Toto talk about, taking a chainsaw to the car, and they are going to completely overturn this thing within 2 to 3 races. So I fully expect Mercedes to be right back in it. Fully expect Red Bull to figure out their issues and be right back. I mean, they were right there the entire race. Bahrain I thought was a very good opener to the season. It gave us what we needed. It gave us something different. It also, to me, it felt like it kind of erased that bad taste that Abu Dhabi left in our mouths last year, right? Just that weird ending and whatever it is. If you're a Mercedes fan, it was a controversial ending. If you were a Verstappen fan, you loved it, but it kind of just removed that. I felt like it took that away, and that's part and parcel because of Ferrari being successful. So it's someone else, right? It's not one of those two. Because if Max had won that race, in whatever fashion, we would have never, like, I don't know if we would have heard the end of it from the Mercedes fans. Had Lewis won the race and, you know, Max had kind of faulted out the way he did, again, we would have never heard the end from Red Bull fans. The fact that we got a Ferrari 1-2 just felt like redemption for the sport. That's what it felt like to me. Obviously, I had other reasons to enjoy it. And like I said, it just, that gave me a really good feeling. And it's like, okay, if Ferrari is doing well, that's good for everybody. That's good for the sport. It's good for everybody. Now
That
we
was
just
so
need,
spot on. Yeah.
we just need teams like Williams and teams like McLaren to also fight, because those are historical teams, right? They've been around forever. They need, like, you want everybody to do well and to make it a fight across the board. That's what keeps everybody excited, involved, you know, and watching. It's, you know, when you have a one or two pony race, it's kind of, it gets old after a while. You know, maybe last year was exciting because Drive to Survive, but you can only keep that excitement for so long when you are relying on the same two or same one team or two drivers to produce that excitement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you, I know you and Jazz are Ferrari fans, but
No,
so
you couldn't have guessed that, right?
as a McLaren fan, when I started watching Formula One, McLaren and Ferrari were the two teams on top. They were bitter rivals. Yeah. I found myself cheering for Ferrari. Obviously, yeah. McLaren was at the back getting lapped, but so I think you're right. I think it was very good for the sport that a non-Red Bull, non-Mercedes came out the gates and got a 1-2. It opens up those possibilities. Formula One's about dreams, right? That's what
Absolutely.
the sport is about, and it opens up that possibility. I know it's hard to frame Ferrari as the little team when they're the biggest team, but you know, it's been a little bit of downtime, so it was good to see.
But it's been, what, 13 years?
Yeah.
14, whatever. So
yeah. So it was great to definitely see someone else break up that. If it was just Ferrari, like you said, if it was Mercedes and Red Bull driving off into the distance again, I would be like, we did all these rule changes for what?
Well, that's a great point, right? Like, all these rule changes came into effect, and that was the biggest thing that I think, like, I was watching for. I was pleasantly surprised with how everything ended, but the biggest, you know, I was going into it expecting, all right, are we going to have some wheel-to-wheel racing? Are we going to have close, like, are we going to be able to follow well? And I know some of the drivers said not much, like Alonso, I think, came out and was like, oh, it wasn't much different, but I don't know. At least what I was watching on TV seemed like kind of wheel-to-wheel. There was a little more of that. They were able to kind of drive wheel-to-wheel, and the following, the dirty air, didn't seem to affect overtaking as much. I was looking at it. I got really excited once Leclerc and Sainz were up there, and I'm like, okay, I'm following in a different light. So I might have to go back and rewatch that to see. But
even you or I, as a Ferrari fan, I still caught myself looking at the mid and looking at the back and seeing what the battles were, because it was just so much more competitive than I think we've seen in the past. And I think that's what made it even that much more exciting, because you had some, you know, you had obviously, you know, Magnussen, who did a great job, and you know, and some of these other guys. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, because that's at some point when I saw that, you know, Leclerc was, I don't want to say cruising, but you know, he was doing his thing. You know, at that point I was like, all right, well, let's see what other drivers or what other teams are kind of making a move. So that was,
I thought Alfa Romeo was, again, very, very surprising. Didn't expect that. They were having some reliability issues in testing, and it was like, okay, are they going to be able to? In fact, I believe Bottas didn't he have some parts replaced before the race? So I was like, oh man, he's never.
Yeah.
This is gonna.
Not to mention, he had a horrible start.
terrible start. He lost, I think, eight places right to
8 places
right
at
off
once.
the gate. Yeah, and then Zhou Guanyu I thought was fantastic in his first race. Yuki Tsunoda stepped up. He's the only Honda to finish the race, which was nice. Across the board, it gave us everything. And I think to some extent, it was kind of cool to see Red Bull putter out. Not that I wanted to see that. Like, I'm not a Red Bull hater by any stretch, or a Mercedes, but it was kind of cool to see. Like,
not yet.
It was kind of cool to see them putter out instead of like, oh, Haas puttered out again, or Williams, yep, they're out, they DNF'd again. Like, it was cool to see that, because I fully expect them to fix their problems and finish the year, you know, very strong and not have the same reliability issues. But it was cool to see, okay, it can happen to anyone. Like, everyone's got to be on their toes now. let's make sure the rest of the year we can adjust this. So it keeps us interested at such a different level when things like this happen, especially in the first race, because now there's so much else to talk about that we may not have had if it was just another Hamverbot finish.
So you've mentioned obviously Ferrari won the race. You mentioned Haas and Alfa Romeo. Is a lot of this down to those are the Ferrari engines?
Glad you mentioned it.
And because there's also rumors going around that maybe they weren't even at full power. Is this thing like a beast that is just gonna? Because I mean, one of the reasons McLaren was competitive last year and Williams wasn't really, but Austin was kind of getting up there was they had that Mercedes engine in the back of it, and I'm feeling one of the reasons they've gone backwards. They have that Mercedes engine in it. But the Ferrari teams were all up at the front.
I think the regulation changes are really affecting like aero and how things are being cooled. And I'm by no means an engineer. I read a lot, so I'm trying to, understand a lot more of this kind of stuff. I think that's where the challenges happen. And for whatever reason, the Mercedes power unit may be underpowered or doesn't have the power. So it's now like amplifying those challenges, right? McLaren, we know had brake cooling issues, right? They were like basically coasting because they had to, right? They couldn't cool their brakes enough.
I mean, at one point, they told Hulkenberg he couldn't come in the pits because his car was too hot. I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
And I think I want to say it's probably slightly coincidental that a lot of this happened to Mercedes power units, but it's hard to argue with it after watching it. I think the Lewis George 3-4 finish may mask some of the issues. Because really they were running 5-6 the entire race, so they're really not at that 3-4 yet. They're going to get there. If not, they'll be at the top. I think the Ferrari power unit is. You got to remember this too. They punted pretty much last year, right? Even Haas, I believe, they punted on last year altogether. They went all in on this development. So you've got to think that those two, Red Bull and Mercedes, fighting so hard at the top where they really couldn't focus on the 2022 regs is going to slow them down in the beginning of the season. But everything I've seen, the Ferrari power unit was actually dialed down. And according to Binotto, he said that they want to gradually ease it. They want to ease increasing the power on it because they first of all, they don't have to be full power right now. We have another street track this week, or we have a street track this week. They probably don't have to go full power on it. They were running high downforce last week. So yeah, did you put something on? Here we go. The plan is to manage it on tracks. Yep. Perfect. There we go. So they're keeping like lower engine modes, high downforce, which is actually pretty incredible because they were able to get the power they got out of it and the speeds they got out of it with a lower power and a higher aero. So I'm actually almost scared to see what this thing can do dialed all the way up, but it looks like they're going to kind of gradually take it up, not, go all in because they don't have to right now. It's so early in the season. So that's exciting to me, right? As a Ferrari fan, like that's exciting because we haven't had that in such a long time where we were like, oh yeah, we just got power on tap. Like we haven't had that really pretty much any time in the turbo hybrid era, right? Aside from maybe 2019, which we can't really talk about. We haven't had that power. Now we've got this power and it's like, do we actually have power in spades? Holy crap. But yeah, I think it's cool to see how these teams are really like playing with all of this, and it's gonna be a fun season.
So do you think that like Red Bull didn't dial it down because they were definitely quicker in a straight line? I feel than the. Do you think that might have contributed to some of the reliability problems? Were they kind of just going for it?
I don't know if Red Bull wasn't
Because I know Toto Wolff also said, like, yeah, we had to dial it down because it's not reliable yet. And I think Ferrari was probably a little bit more calculated than that. They're kind of like, we don't need it. Let's not risk it. But I didn't really – and Red Bull obviously had reliability issues.
I mean, they ran so well in testing and then they ran so well in practice and quali that I just don't think they had to do it. Ferrari, that is. The other teams, I think, were probably dialed back because they had to dial back, like you said, because of reliability issues they were having. two different, situations, right? Ferrari is like, we don't have to because we've got plenty in the tank. The others are like, oh my God, we can't dial it up because this thing's going to blow up, right? I forgot where I was going with this, but totally forgot where I was going with this.
Ferrari's
Yeah.
the best. I probably
No,
somewhere along the lines of Ferrari's the
probably
best.
something along those lines, but no, really, like the power unit itself right now is going to be across the board for all of these teams is going to be really what we're going to be paying attention to see
Right.
how they adapt to each situation, each track. Red Bull, we were talking about Red Bull. That's right. I don't know. I think Max was super aggressive, especially on the 2 or 3 times that he had passed Leclerc, and then they kind of fought each other. Leclerc passed him back. It seemed like Ferrari was he was waiting. I mean, now that's part racecraft, part car, in my opinion, right? That's not just sheer car. That Leclerc's got some intelligence, some IQ there to fight with Verstappen, but yeah, I mean, I truly do believe that, and I think I tweeted this too. I'm not 100% sure. It seems like the way Max is driving might not be the best. Like Max's aggressive style may not be the best for the current setup they have in the car, right? Like I don't know if the car can handle the way he's so aggressive. I mean, diving into those corners, I mean, you're chewing up tires, you're chewing up brakes, you're overheating things. Like he comes from way back, dives into a corner, and then now you're fighting, right? Now you have a car next to you that it can actually battle you back. You're not just going in and taking off, right? Now you have to battle to keep that position up. He was very hard on the car. On his outlaps, he's like, oh, I could have gone all out. And I think Brundle in the broadcast kept saying, or Crofty in the broadcast kept saying something like,
he had a really good outlap, right?
His outlaps the numbers in the outlaps didn't suggest that what he was saying was actually accurate, which is interesting. I didn't go back and look at any of the telemetry or any of that stuff, but I would think that Max I just think his driving style right now is not exactly set up for the way that car can, or how he can handle that car. I think there's like a disconnect there.
Manny, I know you got a question for.
Yeah. So, V, so you mentioned something I think it's very interesting, and I think for us Formula One's fans, kind of have to take it into consideration, right? And
Sure.
Last year was Red Bull and Mercedes; they were going at it, right? And then you have a team of just historic proportions like Ferrari hasn't won in a long time. And I think your point was absolutely right. They took advantage of it, saying, "Hey, listen, it's quite clear we're not going to win this. Let's get to this. Let's go ahead and beat these top teams right now. Let's get to work. Let's figure out something for this new year because it's new vehicles, new rules, new everything."
Sure.
Right? Do you think with just and if I remember correctly, for this season, is it an extra 3 races, right? Or is it 2 races extra for this year?
We had 22 last year. I think it's only
just one. Yeah, just one extra.
Just one extra race.
Okay, so
maybe we're at 22 now without Russia. So yeah,
correct.
I mean, there will be a third.
In your experience at seeing this sport, right? Do you think that teams like Mercedes, and yes, 8-time champion and stuff, but everything's different now, right? You have more competition. You have all these other teams that normally never finish in the top 10. All of a sudden, it's like McLaren's in the back, and you have Sonoda all the way in the freaking front. And you're like, what the hell's going on here, right? Yeah. And that's what we want to see as fans. But my question is for the top teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, mainly for Mercedes, because I am a Benz guy. Do you think they have enough time to figure out their cars before they say it's a little bit too late?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt.
Because in all honesty, I specifically picked Carlos Sainz to be the champion. Because to me, I feel like
I like it.
Not saying that Leclerc can't, but I've seen Sainz enough for me to say he has to peak somewhere. And to me, it's just, this is the time for him. Yeah. And I don't think Ferrari's going to go anywhere, right? I mean, they were the best on the field last week, whether it was before the race, on the race, and after the race. And there's no question that Ferrari's not going to go anywhere this season. But I think, though, it could be a little bit for Mercedes to try to catch up to there, because Red Bull is going to Red Bull. They're going to figure out ways. And obviously, listen, I thought you made a great point. I think Max, the way he was pushing the car versus
Sure.
McLaren in the beginning, right? It was entertaining. It was back and forth, back and forth.
Amazing.
He never really he never really had control of the car after that, right? It was like he just kept in second, kept it grooving. I think he pitted maybe 3-4 times after
He
that.
had issues, yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. His way of driving was right. But again, sorry that I'm going on a rant here.
No,
But
you're good.
do you think that Mercedes has enough time to get their car fixed in order to compete up top? Because to me, it's all about Ferrari and Red Bull right now, and Mercedes a clear third, no matter, without doubt.
I'm gonna actually push back, and I'm gonna say that I think Mercedes is more underrated than we want to give them credit for it, and not just because they're 8-time champions and whatnot, and they've got a 7-time champion driving their car. I think because their engine, like their team, the whole team, they've got they've got like the largest team in F1. Just from that sheer perspective, they've got the ability to make adjustments that some other teams may not be able to. It might take them 2 or 3 races, right? But they're going to start bringing upgrade packages, as we progress. It seems like Australia right now is the target because most are saying, first of all, it's a back-to-back. So Jeddah right now, they're not going to have the opportunity to make as many adjustments as they may want to. Let's see, what is today? Wednesday, so Thursday. So we're already in practice in 2 days, right? They may not have enough for this week, but after that, they'll have 2 weeks to Australia.
Yep.
Then you've got, I think, almost another 2 weeks to Imola.
And I think Wolf did say that the parts were coming in whenever they were going to come in, but he said that the parts were already basically here. But obviously, with the back-to-back racing weeks, you can't really do much with the car.
Well, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating what these teams can do because now, they literally can fabricate and design these parts, or design and fabricate, these parts within a very short period of time. Like, technology is really advanced that this was not available to teams in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, right? Now there's so much opportunity to develop these parts
so much quicker,
so much faster. And again, they have a lot more to go off of, right? Like, in terms of their experience with their team, all the data that they're collecting every week.
Data
we keep seeing data partners being added to all these teams. Like, there's a reason why there's all these data partners being added to these teams, because it's so important for them to understand what's going on in the car. And I think the more they understand, like, I wrote a newsletter piece a few months back at this point that about the data partners that these teams were adding, and regarding the McLaren, the MCL 36, 35, whatever. Like, the data partners they have, the millions of sensors and the millions of data points that it's collecting every second, and it's sending right back to the McLaren, technology center. They have real time understanding of what's going on in these cars to make adjustments. So to for your point about Mercedes, I think it would be foolish to count them out. It'd be foolish to think that they can't make adjustments in a short period of time. And number 3, it's really early in the season. It's race 1. After this, you're only 2 rounds down. You still have another 20 or 21 races to go.
Yeah.
After summer break, things change. Like, there's so much that happens between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Upgrades, other teams upgrades could fail, right? So that makes Mercedes or Red Bull or any of these other teams kind of go up in the pecking order. So it's not always so cut and dry, right? Like, yes, we have a good idea of what's going on because there are enough customer teams with also issues, but I just, I've been watching the sport long enough to just say, we can count them out after 1 round or at all. And again, with someone like Toto Wolff at the helm, they're going to do everything in their power. Also, they have to, right? Like, Lewis Hamilton's not getting any younger. If they want to win again with Lewis and they want to get Lewis another championship, I'm not saying he can't stay. Alonso's 40 years old. Lewis takes care of himself. He could race probably for another 10 years. He's like Tom Brady. But if you want to win, and let's say Lewis is like, I'm done after this year, or in a couple years, like you do have to try to win now. And I think they're going to do everything they can. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to put this out there on this show. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mercedes, podium or even double podium this week. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying they're going to. I still like Ferrari for a 1-2, but I wouldn't be shocked.
But what else did you expect, Manny? Of course.
I got all excited. I was like,
Vish got excited too.
Vish is like, man.
I was surprised. I was surprised.
Here.
I was surprised. Yeah.
Not mentioned. Yeah.
I didn't say win. I said double podium, but
I mean, that's still pretty good.
It wouldn't surprise me. Let's just put that. It wouldn't surprise me. Everything I'm hearing, they were down like 6/10 of a second. They fully believe that a couple adjustments they can make up a half of that or more than half that. Again, a couple things go wrong in a race, couple teams in front. The other thing you have to think about is Max is aggressive, right? How long is he going to respect Leclerc before he goes full diving into him, or not diving into him, but getting a little more aggressive like he did with Lewis? Like, how long before that happens, right? First race of the season, right? Your first race of the season. This guy, okay, he's racing good. Oh, they got a good car. I'll give him some space. Well, now, okay, wait a minute. This guy might be a legitimate contender with a legitimate car. Let's bang it up a little bit. Let's see how good that car can handle it. If that happens, all you need is one little thing to happen, and boom, you've got, two. I mean, even last week, two Mercedes could have realistically ended up on the podium.
Yeah. So I'll just ask here my final question. You as a huge Ferrari fan, Ferrari, 1 and 2 last weekend. That hasn't been done since, I believe, 2019 in Singapore.
2018,
right? Or 2018 or
last.
2019.
Oh, geez, now you got me questioning.
No. I'm just saying though, it's been a little bit, but as a fan, truly a big time fan and passionate fan, how did it feel to know you had two guys for the first ever race of the season to go through that? And then obviously we all watched the way you just enjoyed your national anthem, right? That's something that I think it's something that if you're a true racing fan, you actually enjoy. And I apologize. I don't think my dog likes that so much. But yeah, no, I for your own thinking, like, that has to be an incredible moment, though, right? Without question, when you have 1 and 2.
Yeah, and you were right. It was 2019 Singapore. For some reason, I was thinking something else, and it was Vettel Leclerc. Yeah, man. Listen, someone's a McLaren. One of you guys is a McLaren fan, right? So like that 1-2 last year was just awesome, right? Even as a non-McLaren fan, I'm like, this is freaking cool. Like, good for them to get that 1-2. It's not only. First of all, it's been a very long time, not even just for the 1-2, but just to be as dominant as they were across the board. Everything was great. I mean, pit stops were 0.6 of a second better than anybody else, which we haven't seen that from a Ferrari team in a while, where they've been a top pit stop team, right? They've been almost near the bottom, which sucks. So like, you see that, like, that's great. So everything starts to click. The strategy is working. The drivers are clicking. The car is great. All of that kind of culminated into like this absolute excitement. Aside from the fact that wearing red for me is just, it's passion, right? I would say the only thing that is comparable is wearing, a blue Azzurri kit, the soccer team, the national team, but wearing red, wearing the Ferrari colors, rooting them on, cheering them on. I mean, it's just something that's always been in my DNA since I was a kid. So to actually see them be successful in my like adult life, they were winning when Schumacher was winning. I was 20, I was like 15, 16. Still don't, you don't appreciate it as much as you do now, where it's like, oh my, like this is something that I'm spending. You got to think about this too. We as grown adults are spending time. We're spending Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays watching this. We're spending money on gear. We're creating content about it, for Christ's sakes. Like, there's so much effort we're putting into it. For your team to be doing so poorly year after year, or to be kind of the worst thing for us is to be the middle of the road, in my opinion, right? Like, that's the worst part for Ferrari. I'd rather be at the bottom, because then you're like, you know what? Complete overhaul. Being in the middle of the road is just like, it's a tease. So to finally have what seems like a very well-balanced team from top to bottom, I don't want to get too excited. I'm a Roma fan. I just told you that. I'm also a Steelers fan. So like, I understand how, early season success leads to disappointment in the end, but it feels so damn good, man, to have these guys actually fighting and being the talk of the town for once. It's like, I'm so sick of hearing Mercedes, Red Bull, Verstappen, Hamilton. I'm so sick of hearing those names in everyone's mouth. It's so nice to hear people talking about the team from Maranello, the drivers we've got. I love that you mentioned Sainz, because I love Sainz. I think he was an absolute perfect addition to the team, perfect driver to pair with Leclerc. But again, my concern there is like, well, what happens now that they're fighting for 1-2? Like, that perfect relationship they have, is that going to are they going to fight a little bit? I hope not, because they both seem like they're pretty level-headed dudes. But again, I'm slightly pessimistic sometimes, so I let that get the better of me. But there's just nothing like your team doing well, and now I understand how Mercedes fans have felt the last
How
7
we've
years.
been feeling.
Like, the target,
We've
that target's on your back, every race, that target is every year, the target is on your back. And it's like, man, you've already got McLaren and Alpine complaining about our relationship with Haas. And I'm like, really? Can you let us have one damn win? Jeez.
Oh man. Real quick before we let you go, by the way, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks for having me.
it.
Sorry if I dominated this like 20 minutes.
No, that was the whole point of it.
This is why you are our special guest.
Especially that you're wearing that red. Forget about what these guys say. It doesn't matter.
I know. I like where your head's at.
Let them know where they can find you, where they can find your work, where they can catch you on social media.
Yeah, find me at Vincenzo Landino on Twitter, on TikTok. I've been creating a lot of F1 content over there, and my free newsletter focuses on business, kind of lifestyle culture of F1. It's readqualifier.com. I mean, that's where I'm at all the time. But Twitter is like honestly the best place if you want to communicate with me, ask questions, whatever, make comments, whatever it might be. I'm always on Twitter, man. It's like Twitter is the way of the world right now for me.
Absolutely. Vincenzo, thank you so much again, and
hopefully
we can have you on again soon, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.
Take care, you too.
Awesome. Woo! That was great. I mean,
he got me excited when he said 1-2 for Mercedes, and then he said, "No, wait a minute, but Ferrari's going to take 2 spots."
He said eventually. He said eventually.
He got me all excited over here, man. I was literally about to go to my closet and just have a red shirt on, man. I don't know.
Oh, what?
Whoa!
What are we doing here? Bring Vincenzo back. Bring Vincenzo back.
He's in the chat still. He can still hear us. He just said double podium. He is correct. He did not say 1-2. He said double podium. He actually put it in the chat.
You're right.
He actually put it in the chat just now. He did say double podium.
Oh, he did.
So I got overly excited. There you go.
But Manny hears what Manny wants to hear. So
I'm pretty excited about everything that he had to say about not only Ferrari but just the season as a whole, and all the cars. Look, it's more exciting. I hate it because he makes total sense. Now we have a target on our back right now, and I'm nervous now at every race. Whereas last year it was just like, all right, let's see what we can do. Now it's like, oh my God, all these guys are going to try to catch us. They're going to fight us, right? So it's a different feeling, but it's exciting at the same time.
You know what that is? That's first world problems.
Yeah, no kidding.
Finish behind a Williams, man.
Let's bring on. Speaking of that, let's bring on a member of the team here. She is a big F1 fan as well. I mean, unfortunately, she's a Red Bull fan.
Loves Red
Bull. We'll let it slide this time. Let's bring on Mommy.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we'll let it slide.
Hold on. Let me go and grab my monster. I'll be right back.
If you get too,
I literally just joined. Just cut me some slack. Just save the trash talk for like 2 minutes, please.
we have the X button if you get too Red Bully on us. All right.
No. I'll keep my.
Sorry, I ran out of gas there. Sorry.
Actually, you guys.
Wow.
Before I forget, Vincenzo said something really interesting, and I think that's literally like Verstappen's curse. He said that he was like an aggressive driver in most instances, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it could have been like I forget what year it was, 2018 in Monaco, where he just pushed it to the limit and he just couldn't compete. I think it was, I may be wrong, during qualifying, the day that Ricardo won, and he just couldn't compete whatsoever.
That
It
was
was
Monaco, right?
That was
Yeah.
Monaco, yeah.
That was Monaco.
Mhm.
And I think that is literally, that is his Achilles heel. Like, I think it's going to bite him in the ass every single time because that's just how Verstappen is. So I'm not like
but
you guys.
the problem is that it's
put-
also helped them so much too. So it's kind of like
Right.
a double-edged sword, right?
Well,
So,
Exactly.
I think one of the things we forget how young he is because he's been in F1 so long. Like Hamilton used to be the same way. He used to just 100%. I'm pushing this thing past the limit every race. He threw away his rookie year. He threw the championship away because he was going to the pits too fast and he spun and got stuck in China, or he was going to win the championship as a rookie. So he had to learn. Like this Hamilton that like manages his tires and paces himself. That's like not anything close to the driver he was when he won his first championship, and that's where Max is right now.
yeah.
And he'll learn over time. Okay, I got to manage this situation. Second place is fine. I just got to pick those. But he's really young. He's just been in the sport so long. He's been so successful. He's competing with someone that could be his father. I mean, that's the age gap.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, so we kind of forget that, and we maybe hold him to. He's been so successful and so quickly. We kind of hold him to a standard that we would not hold other young drivers to.
100%.
So let's move on to the next topic of conversation, which we wanted to try to get with Vincenzo, but that's okay because
Wait a minute. Jazz, wait a minute. We should ask our Red Bull fanatic here what she thought about the race.
Hold on, can we
What
do something
difference-
first before we do that? Can we formally introduce one of our co-hosts to the show?
Sorry, we just
I did. Well, I did.
You
You
did
just
sort
didn't
of.
hear
You
me.
said I heard you. You said we got a Red Bull fan coming on. So
And then I said her name. I said her name and
I
everything.
know, but she's.
But this guy up here, wherever he is, where's he at? He's up here.
I'm right above you, man.
No. The
Oh
other
no!
guy.
Yeah, Manny. He's diagonal.
Jesus.
Well, now he moved us around. Now now you're right above. Yeah.
Screaming at the top of his lungs.
All right,
Lonnie, tell him a little bit about
Yeah.
you.
Let's do a
Go
little
ahead.
intro here.
You introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm Moni, the only woman and the only Red Bull fan in this group. So it's a rough
Alejandro is smiling somewhere.
It's a rough time in my life, but it's okay. We're good. Funny story, actually. This is kind of romantic. You guys have to hold your tears back because the reason why I started liking Formula One is because I used to sleep over at my grandparents' house every weekend, like religiously, and I would sleep in my grandparents' room with them every Saturday, and I would wake up like super early. I was young, like 6, 7 maybe, and I would wake up super early on a Sunday, and the first thing I would see when I opened my eyes would be like a Formula One race, and my grandpa would be like, oh my god, drinking coffee. And even though I wasn't like super into it when I was like really, really young, I always enjoyed watching it with him. So I kind of just like carried out with me throughout like my years. And then like when I started getting like really into sports, like, like I'm like a huge soccer fan, tennis fan. So those are those like tennis, soccer, and Formula One. Those are the sports that I follow the most. So as I got older and older and older and older, I'm like a diehard fan of Checo Perez, even since he was in, what is it? Force India? That was what it's called, Force India?
Yeah.
I really
They
like
went through
him
several
too.
names, but yeah, Force India was one of them.
Listen. I'm more of like a player gal most of the time. In this case, driver gal, but that's the reason mostly why I'm with Red Bull, because of Checo.
Did you have to pick Checo?
Yeah, I did. Listen, oh my god, I just
He
know
also ran out of
I'm
gas.
gonna get hate. I already know. Whatever I say, I'm gonna get hate, and I'm ready.
That's all
That's
right.
funny, me.
No. Listen, Moni, you guys are the defending champions at the end of the day. So
That's
I
true.
can't believe I said that.
No, they're not. Mercedes is.
Dude, your own team won the
What
constructors
does it
last
matter
year.
with you,
I don't
dude?
Max
care.
is the
I don't look
defending-
for that.
Max
I
is
don't look for
defending
that. I don't
drivers.
care about that. Lewis
That is
Hamilton
the
is a hero.
champion team is Mercedes. It's not Red Bull.
Yeah, but
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, man?
You can thank Botas for that.
Get it together. Jesus.
I wanna
Anyways,
I want to come
anyways, Moni, go ahead.
So I mean, honestly, as a Red Bull fan, of course, the race was painful. There were so many memes like online, like right after the race, and I was like, bro, this is like one of my lowest points in my life. Like this is just how it ends. And it sucked for Red Bull, but as Vincenzo said, it's like it's refreshing, especially after the ending of last season and everything. I think it's really, really interesting how Ferrari is like pretty much like back on top. And what you guys were talking about, like literally last what was it? 2007 and 2008 were the last years that they won anything. So it's been like over a decade. So I think we have a really cool scenario with like two of the big houses. Number one, Ferrari, what they're able to do in order to stay like on top, and number two, Red Bull, like it was a disaster on Sunday. So how they can recover from that and remain reliable throughout the season. So I think those are like two of the coolest scenarios. I agree with everything you guys said about Haas. To be honest, Magnussen, I feel like he's a super solid driver, and I think that's as good as Haas can do as a race team, to be honest. So that's another one that I'm like interested in like looking out for. Magnussen, I feel like he's like the one that can make the most impact, obviously, out of Haas. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point because I think what he can do is, right, like you said, that's probably as good as they're going to get. But he could possibly, hurt some other teams, right, in the long run, and kind of play the spoiler for some other teams that they may be trying to get some positioning. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, yeah, one of the things I think it's interesting because when he brought this up is, last year they had obviously Mazepin in that seat, and he's not a Formula One quality driver. So Mick Schumacher looked really good in comparison. Mick Schumacher is the heir apparent for Ferrari. He's sitting there at Haas because that's a Ferrari team, and obviously from his father, like he's supposed to go up to the big team eventually. If Magnussen continues to whip him like this, that's problematic for them. That the whole Mick Schumacher. That's what I'm interested because like when I said, Magnussen's a really solid. He's not like the best driver, but he'll do a really solid performance in that car. And Mick better get it together because it's the same thing. Kind of George Russell's obviously in a different situation, but the same thing. It was easy to look impressive when your teammate's Latifi. Right, obviously now he's going against Hamilton, so it's a whole different thing than what Mick Schumacher's dealing with. But all of a sudden you get a better teammate, you better raise your game because you're going to get left in the dust. Because the easiest comparison to make is to your teammate. And if he keeps finishing, obviously they also screwed up his pit strategy. And when everyone else pitted on their safety car, they left him on the old tires, so he just got eaten up at the end. But if Mick Schumacher runs away from a point, gets kind of left behind on a point standpoint, I wonder what that does for his long term.
That's going to be problematic.
He's supposed to be, eventually like in that Ferrari, like he's supposed to replace Sainz, I guess, down the road. So, it'd be interesting to see like does Magnussen just like dwarf him?
Let's see. Two more things before we get out of here. I think two important things, and I want to get everybody's take on this. The first thing is, the newest news, and Manny, we might want to put this up on the expansion rumors from F1 boss Stefano Domenicali, as he posts here. Of course, I have to put it larger in order for me to see it a little bit. But he has confirmed to Sky One Sports F1 that Las Vegas and Africa could both hold races in the future with the calendar set to grow. So now we're talking about we're set for a 23 race calendar this year, right? But just reading off of here what he says, but there are intense rumors that Las Vegas, which was last the host in 1984, could join next season as a third race in the United States. How do you guys feel? Two-part question, right? Yes or no to the expansion, and yes or no to bringing more races to the States, because quite frankly, it's growing here, right? Obviously, the Drive to Survive has been a huge proponent of that growth. But this is primarily a European sport per se. If you really look at it, how do you guys feel? Number one, about the expansion, and I'll give my take as well. The expansion, and then the expansion of adding another race in the States. We'll start off with you, Manny.
Listen, I am going to say yes. Why not? If you're going to have it in Miami, what other city in the U.S. could you possibly host this? It has to be Vegas. They just had a football team. They have a hockey team. The interest in people going there on weekends just to get to these games is freaking staggering, right? And it creates revenue. It creates a hype, and it's going to be something that doesn't involve a professional sport, right? Not basketball, not football, not hockey. It's professional racing. It's racing that we all know, basically, that it's worldwide, and I think it's definitely a great opportunity to introduce that to a city like Vegas. If I was to guess, maybe of another city, maybe in the U.S., there's no other better one, in my opinion, than Vegas to have this. As far as Africa goes, again, I don't know much about that side of the continent, but I do know that they're very passionate about one sport, and that's soccer. The Africa Cup of Nations to them is basically their biggest thing. They look forward every single, I think it's every 2 or 4 years and whatnot. And for them, that's huge. Now, to bring this type of sport into there, I think not only would it create gateways, right, for fans over there to enjoy it and to witness it in person and to see it on their home soil. What would this do though, right? If you start adding 2 to 3 here and 2 to 3 there in a couple of years, it's going to create something where do you want to risk your drivers racing so much and saying in a full season, a lot of traveling. I know a lot of fans don't really see this way, but being a sports media member, sometimes, obviously because of COVID, but I would travel with the team back and forth throughout the whole country, and that does take a toll on you. It takes a toll on the team. It takes a toll on, come on, you guys, you have to basically, move your cars back and forth, and things can change. But listen, I think for Vegas it's great, and for Africa, why not? But after this, if it does occur and if it does happen, maybe we should pause it just a little bit and let the sport itself then grow up even more, especially in Vegas and especially in Africa.
Here's what I'll say really quick before I toss it to someone else, right? And I guess I might as well just give my take. I'm against it, and I'll tell you why. Right now, we've got a 23 race calendar, and you're talking about 10 months of racing already, right? So there's only a few times where you're going to have, you'll have your back-to-backs. Number one, the travel, like you said, Manny, the travel is strenuous when it comes to something like that. You're talking about the fitness and the physical, the mental, everything aspect of these athletes, right? These drivers that are going to have to be going.
Maybe I should restate my answer. I am in favor of it being in those locations, but I'm not in favor of it being added on.
I'm not in favor of 30. I'm not in favor of 30 races.
No. But I am in favor of them happening at those locations.
Yeah. From a revenue standpoint, yeah, could it be great? Yeah, but at what point do you start caring about the drivers and their well-being more than the revenue itself? It's already $1 billion industry. So we're talking about just, I feel like it might be too much, of an abuse of these drivers. I mean, at this point, they're already running 10-month calendars, right? 10-month seasons. I think at this point you got to kind of leave it where it is. If you want to add 2 more, okay, maybe add 2 more and that's it. Africa, the only places I can really think of, because like you said, it's soccer. A lot of it is soccer, but maybe South Africa, maybe Morocco or Egypt, right? They're both in Africa. People forget. So
Egypt will be nice. Egypt would definitely create more huge hype, especially if you make a track around the pyramid. Oh, that'll be
pretty awesome, right? So I mean, that's what we could do there.
Are you out of your mind? Make a track at the pyramid?
Hell yeah, man! One can believe.
Dude, come on, man.
Sim City, baby.
That's terrible.
Talk about overheating. Jeez.
Well, go ahead.
That's it right there. Red Bull shouldn't be allowed. There you go.
Vish and Moni, go ahead. You guys finish off that.
Moni can go ahead.
I think I agree with Manny. It sounds, the idea of adding a race at a cool place sounds good. Like just thinking of it, like wow. But I don't see the point other than them just making more money. I don't really see the point. I don't really see the benefit, like for the players. I don't see it. And to be honest, I feel like the magic of Formula One also lies in like the destination. And like each destination for each race has like its own magic. Like, like you go to Monaco, it's all like the yachts and like the Riviera and everything. And everyone's just watching the race from their $1 million yacht or whatever. And I just feel like it if they keep their current races and they don't add any more, it keeps, I guess, like the exclusivity of the sport
Right.
that I feel not many other sports are able to offer. So it sounds good, it sounds exciting, but I don't see either a need or a point.
Plus, I mean, these teams need time to develop new strategies, new things in their cars, right? New pieces, new parts, whatever it is, to help them, be better for the next season. And what when are they going to have the time to do that?
Well,
I know they do it during the year, but there's a point in time where that's all they focus on, right? I don't know.
and you mentioned the drivers earlier. I'm more worried about the backroom staff, the engineers that like they're working 24/7 trying to build these things, and like that's why there's a forced like this is a problem. The driver's not in the car. In fact, their seat time's limited. It's the engineers that have to that are like burning the midnight oil. That's why there's that
point.
forced break now in the summer. You're not allowed to work on the car for 3 weeks. It's a forced. Everyone has to go on vacation because there's so much burnout. Let's see how adding races does anything for that. You don't need 3 races in the United States. Like I'm sorry, we live here obviously, but why would there be 3 races in the United States and like one in other countries? That doesn't make any sense either. So I think if you're gonna do Vegas, you got to drop something, which would frankly probably be Miami because Texas has a purpose-built track. But I don't know why you want to run cars in the desert. Last time they did it in Vegas, this was before F1 was kind of as professional as it is now. They did it through like a parking garage. Like it wasn't wasn't exactly great. I'm assuming Africa would be South Africa. They used to race there, and a big thing with that Southern Hemisphere, different season. You're limited. Once it gets cold, you can't really run these cars either. That's why they're not. I mean, they can add a few. There are tracks all over Europe. They could add some stuff, but it's gonna jam into the existing calendar. You can't like race in Europe in like December. It's too cold.
Right.
So there's very limited expansion options. And to everyone else's point, like, what is the point of doing that? Like, why are we trying to cram in more races? Like, when we were talking, like this back to back kind of sucks. You want to digest the race, give a chance to like have them also, make changes to the car. Like they get out of
Put more
Dubai
gas in the tank, right? Put more gas in the tank.
So
it wasn't out of gas. It was the pump couldn't pump the gas. The gas was there. It just wasn't getting to the engine.
Jesus Christ.
But no, I mean, like even for the teams, like they're packing up Abu Dhabi. They're already in Saudi Arabia. They got practice in a day now. It's just like it's too much, and they can do that a little bit, but anything you add is just going to cause them to have to do that more. There's going to be a lot more triple headers and stuff. That's not good for the sport. It's not
So
good for
Vish,
the people in it. So I
you
don't really see
mentioned
it.
the last time that Formula One had a race in Vegas. I found an article. It's calling it the most sixth weirdest place to have a race.
No, it was like through a parking garage and stuff.
I
It
found
was
this article
insane.
just now. Look at
Yeah,
this.
no, it was.
Bro, the Caesar's
ridiculous.
Palace wasn't even built yet.
Yeah, no, it's like notorious because they're like, how did Formula One like race in a parking garage?
That's pretty gangster. That is pretty gangster. And real quick before we go, I think last but not least, talking about races is coming up this week. This weekend we've got the Saudi Arabian GP that has only happened once before. It was in its inception last year, right? Lewis Hamilton won that race. It is a street race, not unlike the one in Bahrain. This is a little bit different. How does this track affect some of the performance of some of these vehicles? Obviously, we saw that Ferrari put out that statement that Jeddah really doesn't affect the performance or reliability of their cars, and some others think that it may help with porpoising, as Manny's favorite word. If you guys if you guys can kind of expand on. Maybe we'll start with Vish on this. How this course kind of plays into the performance and reliability of some of these teams.
So this was definitely, I mean, this was one of the last races last year. Hamilton won. It was the one where they finally unloaded all the penalties on Max.
Right. Yeah.
After, I mean, it was where he ran several people off the
Marty
road.
doesn't like what you're saying right now.
Well, I mean, but the interesting thing is the reason there was a lot of a lot of collisions last year in this race because it is a street circuit. There was a lot of safety cars, so that'll impact reliability. So I think they'll be able to put a little bit more power into it because I think they're going to spend some laps behind the safety car where we can not stress the engine. There were I think three restarts I want to say in this race last year, And it was on one of them. That's where Max got his penalty, is when he essentially got beat into the corner and just went straight and took Hamilton. Had to like drive off the track to avoid hitting him, which is what he did in Brazil when they didn't punish him. So he rightly said, "Hey, I thought this wasn't a penalty when he should have gotten a penalty in Brazil." But that's neither here nor there. But it was also the one, if you recall, where he was on that epic qualifying lap and wrecked it in the last turn.
Oh yeah.
So the Red Bull had pace here last year, which wasn't actually expected to be able to compete with the Mercedes, and did. We know that engine is strong. They were strongest in a straight line last week. This is definitely more of a power circuit, so I actually think Red Bull will do really well here.
I guess we'll do this also.
Yeah.
How do you feel it's going to finish?
I'll go Red Bull 1-2. I'll go Max and then Checo, and then I'll put Leclerc in third.
So what'd you say? Go ahead. I'll say it again.
Max first, then Checo in second, and then Leclerc third.
Bold.
All right.
I think it's a Red Bull track.
Hold on, may I just ask you where you think that McLaren's going to finish now?
Stop it, Manny.
Dude, come on, man. 17? I don't know. Why you got to do that, man?
He has been on your ass.
Will a Williams vehicle be ahead of
No, okay, I'll go that far. Both McLarens will finish ahead of both Williams. I'll go there.
Money, what do
But
you
no
got
points. No points.
What do you got on the Saudi Arabian GP?
I'm honestly, truly, I'm gonna put my money on Leclerc. Yeah, Verstappen.
I like it.
Verstappen and probably Hamilton. I'm gonna put my money on it.
She said probably. She means Hamilton. She doesn't mean probably.
You stop it, Manny. That's a nice 1, 2, 3. I'll take it. Manny, what do you got?
Man, listen, I think Max is ready to win again, and I think it's going to be this Sunday. I'm not going to add anything more because I think Vish just stole everything I wanted to say. So I'm not even going to add anything. I mean, he's fucking awesome at this shit. I'm not.
I know.
Listen, but to me, I think that Red Bull, not that they have a target, but after not finishing with any points, for sure they're going to get something out of this. And I think Max is going to come into it knowing that he shouldn't be pressing so early on his vehicle. It's a new track as well, but still, I can't see Max not finishing this. So I'm going to go Max 1. Carlos Sainz 2, and I think a Ferrari takes it again in 3 with Leclerc.
You know what's funny?
but now watch me answer this in 2 weeks in Australia when it comes to Mercedes. It's a different story.
Right. Well, look,
because you got a 2-week gap there. I'm telling you.
Ferrari also performs well on this track.
It does. It does. And I think those vehicles are way better right now.
But I honestly think that I hate to say it, but I think Max comes back with a vengeance this week.
Yep.
And he is P1. He takes the P1, but I still got my boys in the back. So just to be different,
we got the same.
Just to be different than you, though, I'll go Leclerc Sainz. I'll do that. I'll go Leclerc Sainz, and Sainz takes P3 again. So I'll do that.
So
but I'll tell you what, it's gonna be.
I still like my pick. If we think Max can win, then I don't see why Checo wouldn't be up there. Checo is excellent. So especially it looks like there's high tire degradation. He's really good on tires.
Oh my god!
Excuse me. Every time you say Checo, I just go.
The gagging.
What is wrong with Checo? What am I missing here?
I can't deal with it.
No. You didn't.
I can't deal with Checo.
I feel like Jazz lost a bet with Checo a long time ago.
No, I just can't. I can't deal with him. I can't stand him. It's a personal thing.
Driver.
I got a personal thing with Checo. Me and Checo don't get along. Right? It's a personal vendetta with Checo. Right?
Hey, yo, Checo.
Just a hater. That's it.
Every time you say Checo.
All right, but guys,
Moni's got to take a shot.
The most important question, though, of the entire race: where will Haas finish?
Top 10. Top 10.
For sure.
Now, I don't think Magnussen gets in the top 5 this time, but I think that they. I'm gonna go 9. I'll say 9. P9 for Magnussen.
So I'll go the other way. I say they don't get any points.
Okay.
I think the AlphaTauris will finish. I think engine is still there. Too. Like, I don't think gas is going to blow up again. And I think the Alphas might be a little bit better in the Haas overall. And I think Bottas is the best driver of the group. So.
Oh, the Alfa Romeo you're talking about, not AlphaTauri.
Yeah, well, both Alphas, the Alfa Romeo and the Tari, I think are better than the Haas this week.
all the
And
Alphas.
Mercedes will slot nicely into
Mercedes
the
will be like 4-5 or 4-6.
No, they're
five,
5 and 6.
6.
There's a gap between them and the top 4 drivers, and also a big gap backwards too.
Yeah.
Which is why they were able to do stuff like go on hard tires and screw around, and still they were going to finish until the Red Bulls blew up. They were going to finish 5th and 6th
I actually think
anyway.
Checo finishes P4 also. I think he finishes in the top.
And
Mercedes can do whatever they want. Essentially, they're going to finish 5th and 6th.
correct.
they're so
Which is
far ahead of the cars
why I
behind
didn't
them.
even pick us to make the podium, because in my eyes they're waiting for the 2 weeks to Australia to fix or not to try, but to at least see what they can do. And I think just something that you mentioned with our guest, it's basically Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes, right? 1 through 6 or whatever the case is. And it's everybody else then fighting for those other positions that go all the way up to the top 10. And it's being competitive. Like,
I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna give a bold statement here, and Vish is gonna smile for this one. I'm gonna go. Stop it. I'm gonna go a P10 finish for Lando Norris. How about that?
Ooh.
P10 finish for Lando. He gets in the points.
So you only think 10 cars are going to finish?
Oh.
Great.
Oh man!
I mean, this car is bad, man. It's bad.
Daniel Ricciardo has the worst luck I've
maybe
ever
it could be.
seen in a driver.
Ricardo's going to fake COVID this time to get out of having to drive that
no
thing.
shit.
Bro, Ricardo's had the worst luck I've ever seen, man. In a freaking span of 3 years. This guy just doesn't get any.
I mean, the car is terrible, Jazz. How the hell is that thing going to finish 10th?
I just want to put a smile on your face, Vish.
I mean, it's so unrealistic.
Hey, that's why it's a very bold
Bro,
prediction.
at some point this season, the papaya has to make an appearance on podium.
They'll look. McLaren does have a lot of money. They'll develop the car. They'll develop the car, but it is terrible right now, and there's no time to change it. Like, why would it all of a sudden not?
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. But hey, papaya power, bro. We gotta give them some love.
Papaya power.
You can wave as your teams are all lapping them. So.
And Lando Norris is 18th, and Daniel Ricciardo's at the pits.
Hopefully, we have a safety car. They can
the speed with which they were both at the back of that was, even for me, was shocking. I was like, I know this isn't gonna go well. It was like 2 laps in, and it was 19th and 20th. I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me.
By the way, did you see how sweet it was when Hamilton and Bottas passed each other and they both waved to each other? That's so cute, isn't it? Oh my god. Anyways, that's gonna do it for tonight. Moni, let them know where they can find you.
Right there, my handle is @Monilero, like that, on Twitter, Instagram.
Good luck to Colombia tomorrow.
Ah?
Good luck to Colombia tomorrow.
Oh, let's not even listen.
At least you have Red Bull.
No, starting tomorrow, like starting Thursday through Sunday, my days can either go really good or really shitty. So I'll keep you guys in the loop because I'm terrified personally.
I feel you.
Rough times in my life. So we're fine.
Make sure you catch us all here every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons, or you can just type in Hitting the Apex as well. We had a really great time. Thank you so much for Vincenzo Landino for joining us on the show. Moni, thank you for joining us on the show. Make sure you check us out this weekend as well. Saturday we'll do some qualifying reactions, and then the big show, which is our post-race reaction show right after the race, which I believe it's around 3 p.m. Because the race is a little bit later. It is a night race again in Saudi Arabia. So make sure you check us out there as we'll have some post-race reaction. That's always a fun time again. Make sure you follow us at the podcast as well. You can find us on the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Anchor as well. Check us out there. Hitting the Apex. Again, Twitter at F1_5 Reasons. It was a pleasure doing this, and we'll see you again this weekend. Hitting the Apex. See you guys later.
Bye, gentlemen.